Good morning to most, good afternoon to others, and good evening to the viewing audience across the pond. I am your host, Jason Myles, here for another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for taking the time to check us out. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, or one of the very valued patrons, or one of the really fucking cool people that sat and waited, thank you so much. It looks like our guest won't be able to make it. I don't want to say flaked because the last time a guest in Europe flaked, they got hit by a car. It's not funny, but I was mad. And I vocalized my anger. And our guest that day, Anton Yeager, actually got hit by a car.
We coming for you now.
That's what the car said. And it hit him. But Anton's fine. He's still writing great pieces. I've been trying to get him back on the show. It's just a scheduling thing. But he did come back on. Everything was fine. And I think he broke his arm or something. It was really bad. So I sincerely do hope all is well with Sam and we can get this show rescheduled, as I was really looking forward to our conversation. But I think I was able to put something together that would be more interactive than usual. I want to thank everyone that tuned into the great week of shows we had here on TIR. We started off the week discussing the history of the anti-globalization protests of 1999 to why men are lacking platonic male friendships. And Thursday, we welcome Doom Scroll podcast host Joshua Citarella to discuss the mimetic history of Gen Z and Alpha. Those shows are up now. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a playlist for all of our main shows. So you can see all of those shows. Go check those out, please. Especially the one about 1999. Jesus fucking Christ. You people love talking about Occupy. You never talk about 1999. Which is why we're doing this show today. We're going to talk about the 90s, goddammit. If you appreciate the programming on TIR and want to be part of our movie nights and more, think about becoming a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber for as little as $3 a month or a one-time payment of $30 for the year. You can have access to the champagne rooms past and present. Join us for our movie night watch parties and more. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to why you people are here in the first place. The eternal question: did the low culture of the 90s give way to woke identity politics? If the late 1990s will be remembered for anything, it's the moment when low culture became America's mainstream. Jerry Springer beat Oprah in the ratings, pro wrestling dominated primetime, Limp Bizkit topped the charts, and the raunchy teen comedies of the era made exploitation look like empowerment. Woodstock 99, once a symbol of idealism, ended in fire and violence. It was decadence for the masses, and America couldn't get enough. But this wasn't just bad taste run amok. It was the product of deregulation, media consolidation, and an entertainment industry chasing profit through the cheapest spectacle. The poor became punchlines, the working class became caricatures, and the networks discovered gold in marketing cultural chaos to young white men. At the same time, the liberal establishment turned away from class politics altogether, embracing professionalism and hope as moral branding. The Obama era's promise of post-racial harmony soon gave way to identity politics and woke discourse that redefined what resistance looked like, but also who got to lead it. So, usually I have a guest on to talk, but today I just have you guys, the viewing audience. And I want to ask this question: was the rise of woke culture a backlash of the white-dominated, lowbrow culture of the 90s and 2000s, or was it just the next act in America's ongoing performance of identity and spectacle? What say y'all? Why do you guys always make fun of my glasses? I felt like this was a job for Manosphere, Myles. Virtuoso says, the latter. Woodsy of the Bad Hoodsy says, the Overton windows frames mean business today. I want to ask you guys a serious question. How do you think deregulation and media consolidation in the late 1990s make way for this rise in low culture and mainstream entertainment? Does anyone remember the golden era of soap operas and game shows in the morning? You stayed home from school, and what was on TV? This is before people had 24-hour cartoon networks. This is when cartoons were like, maybe you got a handful in the early mornings as you're getting ready to go to school, but once like 9 o'clock hit, all that shit was off. And it was, where I'm from, it was court shows and then soap operas. And slowly that gave rise to talk shows. And it's easy to believe that these talk shows are a natural progression. And Ross Bennis, who's been on the show a couple times, wrote a really good book about the rise of low culture in 1999, kind of being his, I wouldn't say jump off year, but it's the year where it takes shape. And what is fascinating to me is the history that he goes into, because I was living it in real time. It's something that I write about all the time, something that I talk about all the time, trying to relate to people through things that they can understand, like pop culture. And when we think about talk shows, depending on your age, you might think about Jerry Springer. But there was shows before the Springer Show that were much more popular, that definitely didn't try to be Oprah, which was Ricky Lake. And before Ricky Lake, there's a man named Geraldo Rivera. And I don't know if people have a different relationship with Geraldo Rivera, as he has spent so many years on Fox News, that you may not remember Geraldo, the journalist. But he broke some big stories in the latter part of the 70s and was known as a pretty legitimate journalist. And in the 80s, I can't remember the year, he was going to unlock Al Capone's secret vaults. And it was a massive media spectacle. I remember being excited for the unlocking of Al Capone's vaults. For those that do remember watching that show, there was nothing inside of Al Capone's vaults. You waited like an hour. No one knew what was going to be inside. They literally had to break in to these secret vaults. And the whole time he's like, what are we going to find? We're going to find bodies. We're going to find money. What are we going to find? What are we going to find? And I'm excited. Advertisers were excited. Tens of millions of Americans were excited. We were going to watch Geraldo Rivera unearth the secrets of Al Capone's vaults, and nothing was inside. Seriously, there was nothing in there. It was like garbage. And you see Geraldo kind of walking around with this, oh shit, my career is over look on his face. And Ross talks about this in his book, and Ross says something that I don't know if I would have said, maybe because again I don't remember how old I was. I definitely was not a teenager at the time. But I was as shocked as Geraldo. So I didn't see that as maybe him acting. But it didn't matter what was going to be inside Al Capone's vaults. The networks didn't care. That was a win-win situation. Is reality TV in the realest way possible. Not scripted. Pretty cheap to make. And sold advertisers on it. Geraldo later gets a show, and he is really good at just pitting people against each other that are going to fight, right? I have black nationalists and neo-Nazis. Why do those people need to be in the same room? That was like never a question anyone ever asked. Like, why do I care about what? Like, of course they're going to fight. There's no reason why they wouldn't fight. You put Montagues and Capulets in the same room, and you think that they're just going to sit there and have discussions about class? No, not at all. They're gonna fight. And the show is pre-recorded, and they literally fought. And Roy Ennis chokes a man because that man called Roy Ennis an Uncle Tom. It's the easiest thing to throw at a black person that's going to make them angry. There was no reason to call Roy Ennis an Uncle Tom. You can call Roy, you could have, he's passed away now, but you could have called him a lot of names. But Uncle Tom was not one of them that was going to make any sense or stick. But it's just like when white people get angry in these videos and they say the N-word, right? It's just, what's the meanest thing I can think of to say to you at this time with all these people watching that's going to get my side to clap? And I don't think he thought Roy Ennis was going to choke the shit out of him. And as Roy Ennis choked the shit out of him, a melee started because there was a bunch of Roy Ennis's black nationalist friends and a bunch of, I can't remember Metzger's first name, neo-Nazi friends. And of course they fight. A chair got thrown, and Geraldo got hit in the nose by a chair. Again, this is all pre-recorded. He could have edited out the fight, but he didn't edit out the fight. He kept the fight in. Now Geraldo's must-see TV. Geraldo Rivera was huge in perpetuating the satanic panic of the 80s by having people on this show just saying nonsense about found memories of being a child and being sold to satanic covens. This is ridiculous. But we didn't see it as ridiculous because he was a news guy. He was a journalist. But he really was the opposite of what you got from Phil Donahue and then Oprah. And it took Oprah a minute to become Oprah. It took a while before she could become the mammy of a generation. I said it. But one thing that's happening behind the scenes that we don't talk about much is financial deregulation that's allowing networks to syndicate their own shows and create their own programming. And it's just cheaper and more profitable to do talk shows than it is soap operas. Some soap operas stay, the legacy ones. I mean, soap operas have been on the air for, Jesus, like 70 years, if not more. But man, did young people love these talk shows because they gave you the same type of drama that you get from soap operas, especially when you get people like Ricki Lake. She's much younger than Geraldo. She was an actress that was in some quirky films. And there was this chant that people had when she came out. Go, Ricki. Go, Ricki. Do you guys remember that? You guys remember the Ricki Lake chant? Probably not. I feel like there's a small handful of people that probably remember Ricki Lake. And around the same time that Ricki Lake comes out, Jerry Springer comes out a few years after. And it is not a success because they're trying to make him another Phil Donahue. They're trying to make him serious. If you know Jerry Springer's career trajectory, it's an interesting one that some might even say mirrors a Trump-like character. Jerry Springer was a city council member in the 70s in Cincinnati. And in that time, if you hear banging, they're doing some construction in the unit next to me. And I'm going to tell them to stop shortly. I might have to tell them to stop sooner than later, if you guys can hear that. But Jerry Springer was a city council member, and he went to a illegal brothel in Cincinnati and paid for sex a couple times with a personal check. And when that brothel got busted, it was found out that city council member Jerry Springer had visited there. And instead of denying it, he leaned into it and he admitted it. And he was like, yeah, I paid for sex and I paid with the check. And he takes that honesty, kind of everyman thing, and then runs for mayor and wins. And this is decades before Trump has grabbed any vaginas on air, admitting to it. This is decades before Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. But there's something about, hey, this guy's just like me. I wish I could pay for Poontang with fucking bounce checks. Chapter Black says the Zoran of his time. So they decide to kind of lean into Jerry Springer's past and be something like Ricky Lake. He gets a chant, Jerry, Jerry. And the show is a hit. No longer is he trying to confront Nazis or teenage runaways that are addicted to drugs. No. Now it's, I'm in love with my cousin. Sorry, honey, but I'm banging your mom. These kind of shows. I got a secret to tell you. I'm really a man. There's mud wrestling. There's hot oil wrestling. There is Jerry Springer at night. It gets so hot for TV that there's a video called Jerry Springer, Too Hot for TV. And what do you see in the Too Hot for TV show? You see titties.
Because I nut quick.
Yep. That's what it is. You get to see titties. We're all about titties in the 90s. But none of this can happen without financial deregulation and media consolidation. Someone says, I cannot say I remember talk shows much. I was 7 in 2000. Woof. They were still around, but I get it. You were a small child and probably also 2000. By that time, you have 24-hour cartoons. So everything's different. Drea says, I finally get to a show and Jason's saying he's in love with my cousin and doing my mom. It looks like I've missed a lot. Not really. Just rewind. But this was the entertainment that became the dominant entertainment. Maury Povich was once a esteemed journalist, the husband of Connie Chung, another national news, what do you call him? Broadcaster? Anchor? Maury Povich was like a serious guy. And now I'm not the father. And that was a lie. The lie detector test. And you are not the father. That becomes Maury Povich. Interesting time. What do you guys think shows like the Jerry Springer Show and events like Woodstock 99 tell us about who the entertainment industry was marketing to? Someone says a current affair was not an esteemed news show, Jason. Speak for yourself. I love true crime. It's not like current affair didn't cover the news and made it up. The current affair was like a more serious National Enquirer. That's where Bill O'Reilly gets his start. But that's also not where Maury Povich got his start. That's maybe where people recognize him, but he was doing news stuff before that. But all these shows and even the music of that era is marketing towards white men. There's literal data that shows that that was who the audience was they were trying to appeal to. 18 to 35-year-old white men. And when you look at a concert like Woodstock 99 in its aftermath, that's what the artists that wouldn't be lumped into the categories of like new metal were complaining about. That it was a this is the first time I heard the term rape culture was during the aftermath of Woodstock 99. But it's interesting that people say that because when I think of a band like Limp Bizkit, who I'm not a fan of per se, but I did have to kind of defend them. I wrote this thing about the Woodstock 99 documentaries. The song is Give Me Something to Break, not Give Me Something to Rape. But there was a certain kind of white man that was into that stuff. And you can say the same thing about bands, and this is where people get really angry, like Rage Against the Machine. If you think, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, for everyone that listens to that song is going to be a middle finger to the LAPD and not your parents, your boss, your principal. You're fucking high out of your mind. That music did not exist in a bubble away from this other suburban pablum that was coming out in the 90s. It was right there in the middle with it. They come up in the same scene. And no one cares about the communist images that surround bands like Rage Against the Machine. There will be several people in the comments. I'll look over in the corner of my eye in the chat, and I'm sure people will be like, it was because of Rage Against the Machine that I read Frantz Fanon. That is a beautiful story, and it's wonderful. But Rage Against the Machine didn't birth a million podcasters or Fanon fans. And the people that go see Rage Against the Machine, the vast majority of them have no idea who those people are. They don't know A Shining Path from Ruby Slippers. And that's okay. But we have to be honest with the music of that era. That probably wasn't the intention. Just like I don't think Fred Durst's intention when he got to perform in front of over 300,000 people was that they destroyed everything and lit it on fire. And if you know the history of that event, that stuff didn't happen until the day after when the Red Hot Chili Peppers played. And after they were asked to calm the crowd down, they did a cover of Jimi Hendrix Fire. So they got to walk away unscathed. And mainly because they were music that, as goofy as I think that shit is, it was still deemed as like more important. They were more serious for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. The same people that love Limp Bizkit love fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers. I feel like if you were of a certain age and you loved Limp Bizkit, Red Hot Chili Peppers was like your Radiohead. Chapter Black says, I blame Red Hot Chili Peppers more. Hell yeah. Ken says, Rage birthed 1,000 frat boy Gen X a-holes. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit. But this was This was a time where there is a backlash and people don't want a certain type of person in their crew, in their party, in their movement. And I think those people also are not paying attention to anything. Woodstock goes down in August, I believe, and the WTO protests are in November. There's probably some spillover. I'm sure there was some people that were there uh, in New York that showed up in Seattle. Maybe equally as white in '99 in Seattle. Jesus Christ. Damn it. So someone says, what killed mainstream rock in the early 2010s anyway? I don't know. What is mainstream rock? Nickelback? What becomes mainstream rock in the 2000s? Creed? I don't know. There's still rock bands doing quite well, touring and playing stadiums. Coldplay is one of the biggest I think they were the number one selling live band for this year, 2025. We looked it up the other night in the Champagne Room. Hip hop becomes very popular in the mid 90s. But is the cultural shift that we see in the late 90s a genuine expression of working class rebellion, or was it a commodified parody of it? What say you, audience? Someone says Nickelback was huge. Here we go. Tony, your questions caused me to reconsider the redenomination of currency value in light of its ability to do what it is probably meant to do now: purchase assets and get rents. You're talking to Tony. Van Clor says Californication was on the radio for far too long. I think it's still on the radio. Red Hot Chili Peppers were more old and were probably closer associated with Nirvana and the grunge movement than they should have been. Yeah. Someone says yesterday's Groypers. So we're Limp Bizkit fans and new metal fans and the people that participated in the events of Woodstock 99, yesterday's Groypers. Is Jerry Springer the Nick Fuentes of the 90s? And if so, what does that say about the influence of old men? Someone said the Chili Peppers were good when George Clinton produced them. I think those records are trash, but that is just me. Chapter says most consumers did not really pay attention to whether Rage were left wing or not. That's another thing that we have to remember, is that no one's really talking about the world in terms of left and right. The conversation is about Democrats or Republicans. It's really gang warfare talk, right? And there's a few things that are happening at this time that I don't think are coincidental. As the 90s gives way to a new administration that is a Democratic administration, it also is the end of 12 years of conservative administrations through 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of Bush Sr. And Bill Clinton is seen as this friend of youth because he is a lot younger than his silent generation opponents on the right. MTV leans in very hard with their support of Bill Clinton in the 92 DNC. Bill Clinton goes on Arsenio Hall. It's kind of a joke for people of a certain generation now, Bill Clinton playing the saxophone on Arsenio Hall, but that was a really big deal. Arsenio Hall is this cultural icon of the 90s that if you got on his show, you had kind of made it. And to have this guy play the saxophone on Arsenio was something you were never going to get out of any other presidential candidate. And kind of back to Jerry Springer. Oh, look, that guy's just like us. And what's going on is you're shaking it up. We have to remember that kind of there's a few things that are happening back to back. The assassination of Kennedy and Watergate really erode, and Vietnam, maybe three things, really erode the trust that millions of Americans have in a system and politics and politicians for that matter. So when someone can seem like a change, we're all in. And Bill Clinton was going to be that change. He was youthful. He was relating to the youth without being condescending. He was saying all of the right things. But his administration is an extension of what we were just 12 years into. We get more financial deregulation. We get more mass media consolidation. We get more eroding of the social safety net. And while that's going on, we have this media ecosystem that is showing us why we should be getting rid of this social safety net, because these people really are broken. They're cousin fucking. They can't get right. On one end of the spectrum, the white end, you have these white trash parodies that we get to see paraded out on a daily basis ad nauseum. We cheer it on. And on the other end of the spectrum, the colored end of the spectrum, in the 90s and early 2000s, you see these violent, fatherless, colored youth shooting each other at a rapid rate. And a media ecosystem that we're going to eat up 24/7 with no real analysis of what we're eating up. I said this on the show on Thursday when I was talking to Josh. Warner buys time. It's like this massive, should be a monopoly. It's not, right? Warner, the Time Warner merger happens. There's a show called The Jenny Jones Show. For those that don't know, there's a woman named Jenny Jones. She had a talk show. She was a comedian. She got a talk show. That's what you got. Either you got a sitcom or you got a talk show. Jenny Jones got a talk show. And she had a show where it was tell us about a crush, a secret crush that you have. And if you remember back in the day, there'd be an 800 number you call, and you call the number and they would fly you out. And we have to be honest that a lot of these shows were just fake. The producers didn't care. If you're going to tap dance, we're going to fly you out. We're going to get a limo to pick you up. We're going to take you out to dinner. We're going to get you liquored up. And then we're going to give you the boot and kick you the fuck out of here once we've got you cooning it up for the camera. So she flies out these three people. It's a woman, her gay best friend, and her straight best friend. And the straight best friend is supposed to be shocked that this woman's gay best friend has the crush. And this man thinks that maybe he's there because his female friend, and they're just friends, has a crush on him. But remember, it's a free trip to Chicago. I forget where these people are from. Somewhere in I want to say the South or maybe the upper Midwest, like Michigan. But they literally live in a trailer park. The man finds out that the gay friend of the woman friend is the one that has the crush on him. He is uncomfortable, but he takes it too far when they get home, and he shoots that man and kills him. It's horrible, extremely tragic, and unnecessary. But there's a new channel that's going to show us this trial. The channel's Court TV. Court TV is owned by Time Warner. Jenny Jones Show is owned by Time Warner. And then that court trial is going to be analyzed on the news network that's also owned by Time Warner. And that became big time national news. Same thing with OJ. Trial of the century. What hand does media consolidation have in the way that we look at trials of the century? What hand does media consolidation have in the way we look at underclass ideology? I don't know if that was the first case on Court TV, but it was definitely a big one. I'll double check, but I believe so. Bay Planner says, damn, the whole decade was a mass cultural movement to turn public sentiment against social safety nets. It feels that way. And it works that way quite well. Because again, no one has a problem with welfare reform. Who's out there complaining about it that anyone cared about? Like, seriously. There were two major documentaries that came out a few years ago about Woodstock 99. And mainly they were a way to kind of say that Generation X is filled with broken men, violent, apathetic, bro culture losers, and this is what they do at a music festival, opposed to the boomer generation, which understood peace and harmony and acceptance. That's fucking bullshit. But where are all the documentaries about 1999 World Trade Organization protests? Especially as we see police repression function exactly the same 20 plus years later. I don't see much. Again, that show, nobody really wanted to watch it. In what ways do you guys think low culture normalizes misogyny and racism and class mockery under the guise of entertainment? Andrea says, yeah, I'm pretty sure the original Woodstock didn't have any drugs, angst, or sexual assault. It did actually have 2 reported rapes that I could find. And there were dead people there, and there were assaults. And I believe there was a bathroom. Tony says, value is, I think, an abstraction made real only under our class structure of capitalism, a fiction made real like gods or race, and then it rules us and we can't see that. Ooh. Preach, Tony. How do you guys think the politics of the Clinton years, welfare reform, deregulation, and third way centrism mirror the cynicism and spectacle of the pop culture landscape? And again, feel free to write your soliloquies in the comments section. I look forward to not reading them. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to read them angrily. This is a beautiful line. I hate how anyone who is uneducated is considered a Republican. I think that's important because the Clinton years and the Obama years definitely are these moments of professional managerialism. Let's just say professionalism. I can't talk. I agree. And that's why you're not invited to the party. You're not invited to the party if you were part of the low culture 90s. If you like Limp Bizkit, then you were a part of a culture that assaults women and hates gay people and is racist. And I don't know if all those things align because that's not the message of the music. It really isn't. But for some reason, elites got to project a certain amount of jealousy onto that music. And this is music, I want to say again, I'm not a fan of. I feel that, oh God, there's a Limp Bizkit fan, there's an ICP fan. That's a pretty welcoming organization. You don't have to wear the clown makeup to go to the Juggalo thing. You don't have to wear baggy cargo shorts to be accepted by the Juggalo people. You really don't. When I think about things like punk rock, the first thing someone always says is, because I'm a blah, 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 I was accepted there. I was like, but were you wearing the uniform? Were you at a certain kind of punk show? I'll give it to the fucking Juggalos. They just don't care. They really don't care. I'm not a fan of the music. I think it's hilarious. But they did the Kiss thing where you create a culture around the characters that you play on stage that become much larger than the music. And then it's about merchandising those characters and that culture. There is a culture around Kiss and merchandising that is way bigger than the band. I've been trying to listen to Kiss records to understand, and I don't think they're bad albums. And if you look at a band like Kiss and you look at their spins, it may not be as high as, I don't know, any of their rock contemporaries or any of the pop culture contemporaries. But when you sell your catalog for hundreds of millions of dollars and your likeness, it's because you created a extremely profitable cultural enterprise and the music no longer matters. And that's Insane Clown Posse in a nutshell. We can say what we want to say about Limp Bizkit, and we all know, give me something to break, right? I don't know any insane. I can't even say their name. I don't know any Insane Clown Posse songs. I know Eminem dissed them on his first record, and it was really funny. I know they dipped their toe into pro wrestling for a minute. Um, I know that there's artists that they've helped propel through their Juggalo Festival thing, like Tech Nine. I think Tech Nine is one of the dopest rappers around. But he gives, and he has to give a lot of credit to Insane Clown Posse and those fans for helping push him in a way that no other hip hop groups were going to. Sounds all right to me. I have friends that are definitely in the hipster punk world that went to a gathering of the Juggalos just to check it out, and they had a ball. They said it was so much fun. Truly accepting those people. Red says I can name some ICP songs for each. That's right. Red is in Detroit, where those guys are from. Ken says I bought a Kiss coffin. Kiss has coffins. Oh my, yeah, that's so crazy. Um, they outright said everyone else wanted to be the Beatles. We wanted to be Coca-Cola. Chapter Black says Kiss from the outside looking at it seems like similar to ICP, where it's just a big party. It does seem like it's a big party. And then you want to get the stuff from the party. I don't know any other group outside of Insane Clown Posse, and there has to be a connection that you make with the people that dig your music. And so that means you have to make a kind of music that is for the outsider. I saw Marilyn Manson live one time because a buddy of mine works for a band that Manson opened for. And last year, I think it was last year, they were here, or they were in San Diego, and I went up and saw them. And I'd never seen Marilyn Manson. I've never been the biggest fan, but I thought the show was really, really good. But as far as having that us against them mentality, I don't think Marilyn Manson really has it. There's definitely fans that love him. But as far as making the same kind of ICP type connection with people, I don't know if he still has it this many years later. He definitely, I think, wanted to be a contemporary Bowie in a heavy metal kind of way. And I think that's a little too arty. I think it's a little too off-putting. The playing with gender. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. It just, I don't know, maybe it's a little too alienating. I did enjoy the show. I'm not going to lie. I sat there going, damn, Marilyn Manson live is really good. Eminem was at the very least authentic, regardless of all the suburban white people who liked his music. Damn. Knew plenty of white boys in college who would say, I only listen to country music and Eminem. That's funny. McManson guys loved Eminem. ICP got put on a watch list. They did. They said that their fans were a gang, which is hilarious. Drea says there's so much talk around bro culture, etc., of Gen Z and millennials. People forget it's always been around and is, I think, getting better. It's the internet's mirroring it that makes it seem worse. Hell yeah. Hello, Jason. Those glasses are fire. Fuck yeah. Give it up for these fucking glasses. One more time. Jason's like, these whites just want to talk about it. I saw Manson once. This chick was pissing in a corner of the venue in a very public view. Chapter Black says the shock stuff got too alienating over time for sure. Honestly, I have liked all of Manson's 90s materials, and I related, frankly, I think he couldn't maintain it by the emo era. I don't know. I think drugs play a part in all this, right? I never liked Stone Temple flannels. Wait, what is this? I never liked Stone Temple flannels. I liked Fat Mike Misfits, blah, blah, blah. Wow, the Stone Temple flannels. Damn. I'm pretty sure Jason's glass. What did he say? Jason, what made you not vibe with STP? Was it Scott's singing style? I didn't like the first Stone Temple Pilots stuff because I thought it sounded like Pearl Jam. And then I toured with a band. I tour managed a band that made more radio friendly rock, and they played music that I did not listen to. And we had one rule that was like driver chooses the tunes. And so one of them played, I think the album is called Four. And I just remember thinking, this is a damn good record. I think like most bands, they, matured into their sound and wrote some really great songs. I think Sour Girl is one of the best songs of that era. I think Vaseline is a great song. I definitely put it on little like workout playlists and stuff like that. But as far as a band that I go back to, and not so much. But also that the rock of the '90s, I'm not the biggest fan of. Thomas is not gonna lie, I listened to Marshall Mathers LP, but that was a long ass time ago. I remember when Eminem hit. I remember telling my friends like, "This is white Tupac. He is going to connect with white people in this spiritual way." Because Eminem talked about stuff that I would say rappers in general weren't talking about, but it was like if Pac was talking about life in a way that showed the duality of inner city man. I can love my mom despite her flaws, and I hope this love helps her through her flaws. I understand I live in this community where people feel so trapped that they commit the most heinous crimes out of desperation. With Brenda's Got a Baby, I'm enjoying the fame in my youth and the trappings of fame I get around. Right? No rapper since has been able to speak that language with a certain amount of authenticity, I think, and believability. Um, Mainly because I think you hear it in his voice in those records before he goes to prison of this has to be the best thing I do because I need this song to hit so I can make it, whatever making it is for him, was for him. Eminem to me is the same person but white. I'm going to talk about my real problems. I have drug issues that go beyond the coolness of weed. Weed was a lifestyle drug. And Eminem is like, yeah, weed's cool, but I'm popping weird pills. I'm snorting whatever I can find. I have issues with my kid's mother and child support. I have my own mom issues. Those are real problems for real people, and it's extremely relatable. He's saying it in a very comical way, but it's still relatable. And if we think about how unrelatable music got at a certain point in time, it is the Pacs and the Eminems that to me make it relatable again. Then it just gets comical because the derivatives of those people only get the jokes. If all you got from Tupac was the angry hood shit with the shirt off, then that's all you're going to give back because that's all you really understood about it. And there's nothing deeper in you, introspective in you. I think the best thing you get from Tupac is maybe DMX, a person that's also very upfront about their demons. Sadly, he's not here with us any longer either. Donald says Vicodin, vroom, vroom, vroom. That spoke to me as a white person. Oh my God, you guys are horrible. Chef says he's not an Eminem guy. It's not for everybody. Damn. Oh wow, Donald says Tupac had some positive messages to me. I heard it. I don't think Tupac's all bad or all good. I think there's some pros and cons to him. I definitely think Tupac and Eminem are products of their time. Because again, we're seeing a safety net erode. We're seeing financial deregulation and for a short time uplift as well. Because one thing we don't talk about enough is the fact that through financial deregulation and the mortgage crisis, before it's a crisis, it's the mortgage boom. And so many people were able to leave the hood, if you will, into the suburbs. Maybe they didn't keep those houses after the thing crashed, but it really changed the way people saw uplift. It wasn't going to be through good government. It was only going to be through a certain amount of deregulation. Is it fair to see the rise of reality TV and pro wrestling culture as precursors to the political style of figures like Donald Trump? I'll ask it again. Is it fair to see the rise of reality TV and pro wrestling culture as precursors to the political style of figures like Donald Trump? The sequel to Friday is based in Rancho Cucamonga, a suburb east of LA, generally the trend for millions of people like my parents. That's a good point. Friday no longer takes place in South Central. It takes place in a suburb. The joke is, right, his uncle won the lottery, and that's why he moved out to the suburb. But you didn't have to win the lottery to move out to the suburb. You just bought a house, no money down, no income verified. White flight happened big time once they axed Cabrini Green. Another thing we don't talk about enough in these spaces is Hope 6 and the Clinton administration. It's not just welfare reform, it's also this assault on public housing. The punitive nature in which we understand the quote unquote social safety net. Even saying social safety net kind of sounds like, well, this is the politics of the loser. They're not trying hard enough. In America, we have winners and we have losers. Thanks, Scott Galloway. What would Scott Galloway say right now if we were talking about the 90s and financial deregulation? And we were talking about media consolidation and uplift through these economic means like entrepreneurial uplift. Sure, he was coming all over himself during the 90s. Like, seriously. When you have projects like Hope 6 that are just demolishing public housing in the name of, well, it's broken. It never worked. It created ghettos. And there were horrible things that happened in public housing. The movie Candyman, which I've seen more times than I can count, the original. I won't watch the remake because it's it's too much. We'll get into why I don't like the remake in a second. But if you watch the original, there's a scene in the original where Candyman comes through like the medicine cabinet, and that was based off something that the writer had seen. No, I'm sorry, the director had seen in a news story about not the Cabrini Green projects, but another series of projects in Chicago. And I had read that and I didn't think it was real. So I went and found the actual story that it was based on, from 1987 in the Chicago, is it called the Chicago Observer? Chicago Free Press? I forget what it's called. Anyway, there was a woman, a black woman, who was kind of a crotchety old woman, and she did yell at the young kids who were out doing bad all the time. This woman called the police one night, 911, and said they're coming through the bathroom wall. And the 911 operator thought she was crazy and was like, "What?" And she goes, "Uh-oh." And the 911 operator, of course, tells the police, "We got to call." One of the things the lady said in the 911 call that was really heartbreaking was, she says, "Tell the police the elevator's working." Because she knew if she just had the 911 call, the police wouldn't come, because they didn't want to take the stairs. The lights were always broken on the stairs. You never knew who was around the corner. So the cops would come to 911 calls, get there, find out the elevator was broke, and just leave. So she goes, "Please tell the police the elevator's working." So the cops get there, they knock on the door, the woman doesn't answer. They tell the 911 operator, "Can you call this woman up? Because we're here." She's not answering. The 911 calls, they can hear the phone ring. The woman doesn't answer. They leave. A couple days later, one of the woman's friends does a welfare check and says, "Hey, we need a welfare check on this woman." So the police come again, and they go to the property management company and they say, "Can you guys open the door?" They get there to open the door and they don't have a key to open the door. Police like, "Can you get a key to open the door?" And we'll figure it out. We'll find the key. I guess the lady had her locks changed. They didn't have the right key. That took a couple more days. So finally, they get the door open. Police have to bang the door open because no one can find the key. And the woman is dead. And it is the scenes of a robbery. And what the police end up finding out is that during the construction of the building, the architects thought it made sense to have this gap between walls to make it easy for plumbers to fix piping. And the medicine cabinet that they would put on the wall was just held up by like 6 screws. So if you move the medicine cabinet out, it was a big enough, almost crawl space that a person could crawl through literally to the other side. And as people were leaving these units because, the decay, young kids robbing people, drug addicts looking for a place to shoot up, dealers looking for a place to have a spot, they were using these crawl spaces as escape hatches. Commit a crime in one unit, that person calls the cops, whatever, you can sneak out through the medicine cabinet escape hatch. And if you find the articles, again, it's from 1987, there is a lot of underclass talk. Like, these people are just broken. This whole place needs to be torn down. The reason why the woman was robbed in the first place was because she got an increase on her SSI benefit from like $140 to like $400. And she fought for that increase. She was mildly literate and was going to school to try to get her GED, so she could get a job and she could move out of these subsidized projects. And she had bought a few things for her home, some cheap silverware and a new jacket for the winter, and saw that she had bought some things and assumed she had money inside. She also was falling victim to televangelist scams, and found in her home were letters from different televangelists that were asking for donations and prayer blankets and goofy shit like that. Um, so it's easy to tell stories like that and say that these places are these horrible places of crime-ridden, broken people that are never going to get right. And if we destroy these places and build a mixture of market rate housing with a little bit of low income housing, everything will be better. We'll create these happier places for people, and we'll be able to get those bad people out of here, and we'll keep just the good ones. We'll have a way to figure out who the good ones are. We'll means test who the good ones are. And that's Hope 6. Destroys public housing. It is not a one-to-one build. They don't tear things down and build it right back up for people. And there's still cats fucked up over that. Again, the destruction that we see during the 90s and early 2000s that every so often people talk about, but it was also talked about through an extremely racial lens. If you look at it through a racialized lens, then it's Chicago's black problem. It's not America's problem. Well, Jerry Springer's okay because usually it's just white people on there, and I like laughing at poor white people. It's not America's problem. The welfare queen's got a talk show. It's called Maury Povich. Snackway says, wouldn't that be the time a cop should bust down the door like the resident called and was unresponsive when they got there? You would think, Snackway. No, the police felt like it was a joke because kids joked. It was a normal thing. Cops would show up, kids would joke. There was no 911 emergency. It's something that happened. So the cops actually thought it wasn't serious. Also, I don't think the cops wanted to go inside. I think they were terrified, to be honest with you. Red says Maury is still doing shows about who the father is. Of course. The destructive trends hit certain communities first, but they spread to everyone else over time. I agree. Government housing fails because it requires unanimity. Damn you for writing that word. Can we understand Obama's hope and change rhetoric as a kind of liberal rebranding after the moral hangover of the lowbrow 2000s? Ooh. I'll ask that again. I need you guys to answer that. I'm looking over here. Can we understand Obama's hope and change rhetoric as a kind of liberal rebranding after the moral hangover of the lowbrow 2000s? How did the Obama years create the cultural and psychological space for the rise of identity politics and woke discourse? And when I say woke, we'll use it in the kind of Republican pejorative sense. That's another word that is totally devoid of its original meaning. The original meaning of woke comes out of kind of the black community where it's stay woke to the wretchedness of white people. Don't go to sleep on the wretchedness of white people. Keep one eye open. Stay awake. That's what woke means. It doesn't mean gender nonconforming Superman. It doesn't mean what bathroom you're using. It means keep an eye open to the wretchedness of the white man. But for all intents and purposes, we woke the same way look at the views of Republican woke. Yes, there was an attempt to turn towards public intellectuals as a potent source of direction again, but the problem with that is that it forefronts the prerogatives of PMC technocrat as smart. I rewatched Obama's 2004. So if you guys haven't realized, a lot of this comes from something I've been working on. I rewatched Obama's 2004 speech because I felt like he was really speaking to a nation that was a little upset with the way things were going. The over sexualization of young people in movies, the music, the culture. And if you listen to that speech, he doesn't promise you anything. There's nothing that government's going to do. It's just a better person's going to be in office if John Kerry gets elected. A person that has your values. But the values that you have are like a nicer version of libertarian values, I guess. But the audacity of hope speech that he gives in 2004 is, it's like, word? Nick says, woke is when I get a parking ticket in Berkeley. Ken says, woke is so black coded that when conservatives started using it, you knew the gig was up. JW's had a magazine called Awake. It was a Bible verse that means keep aware. Thank you. That's what woke is supposed to mean. What would it take for the government to build nice and affordable housing like we did in the New Deal? The will? I mean, housing is one of the biggest things that we talk about right now. That's what people like Mondami are winning elections on, saying the rent is too damn high. But housing is also a way people see out of their class status. We just look at housing as a way out of our class status, right? Like if I can buy a house, then I can find a way to maximize equity in that house. Then I could buy income property, and it will be through owning income property that I'll be able to lift myself into a different class status. The only thing that's real for a lot of people is owning property. You're like, everyone's going to need a roof. I want to be the roof provider. So it's hard for people to understand housing. I don't want to say necessarily, but beyond the commodity aspect. And the government at this point doesn't really have to talk about quality housing from the federal perspective, right? It's on the state to get creative with housing. And liberal democracy has not been working out real well for us when it comes to public housing or any sort of housing initiatives. I mean, look no further than Los Angeles. Look no further than California, my home state, the one I love oh so much. But Jesus Christ, the billions of dollars that have been thrown, lit on fire in the name of housing. It's always going to be a public private partnership. You're going to have to entice builders to want to build. So you'll have goofy shit like these covenants where after 30 years, you can revert back to market rate on your affordable units. There has to be an incentive. The Fed doesn't need an incentive other than to house people. Dude says almost every single person I know either plans to be or is already a landlord. I was talking to my landlord recently because the work you hear next door is because for some reason this unit that is next door to me, no one ever stays in there that long, and whoever stays in there is the weirdest motherfucker in the world. There was this woman that stayed in there when I first got there, and she left because she said this was all one. So basically, where I live was all one giant house, and the people that bought it literally live next door. I can look and I see my landlord's house right now through my bedroom door to my kitchen window, and they converted it into 3 units. Maybe it should have been 2, but they converted it into 3. And the middle unit had no windows. The windows, you saw either this really narrow walkway where our water heaters are in the back, or the front, which is the breezeway walkway where you walk to your door. And it had crazy mildew. Again, I live in libertarian California where building codes be damned. Water line, power line, they could be next to each other. Nobody gives a shit. 18 inches off the ground for the hot water heater. If you say so, we don't care. So this lady left. She goes, there's incredible amounts of mold in this kitchen that I can't get rid of. And I don't have any windows, and this house is dark and depressing. And so she left. She was here for maybe a month. And they said, you're right. And they just built an upstairs. It's really nice space. Built this upstairs, and the upstairs is like glass. You look out and you see the ocean. It's actually a really pretty view up there. I think it's a better view than I have on my terrace, is the upstairs view on the unit next to me. So guy moves in. He's a professional gambler that just happened to leave Vegas. He was a weird dude, and he just like left. I think somebody was looking for him. He just left. He was a real asshole too. He was one of those guys that would start a conversation with you and then say the most insanely racist thing, and you just don't know how to respond. And I don't know how much this happens to people that like, I don't know what it is about me that says, yeah, tell me really racist shit. I want to hear your racist thoughts. I don't go around just hugging random white people. I don't walk like this. I don't always smile. I don't know why people want to tell me these things. But I remember this guy was like, do you date women out here, like Mexican women? I was like, yeah, sometimes. He goes, are you learning Spanish? I was like, yeah. He goes, I don't want to learn Spanish. They should learn English. I was like, well, we live in Mexico. And he was like, so they come to America, they don't learn English. I was like, so that's your this is payback? You living here is some sort of weird payback? you respond to that? Like seriously, I responded to that. I was like, that that's how you that's was your thought process? Word? And the guy left, and another guy then was a brothel out of there. And then these two weird kids moved in, and they ended up stealing a bunch of money from people that lived in the neighborhood. And then these other regular people moved in for like a week. And they always like she tries to make it better and like, I'll build a bathroom. But I ran into her and she goes, I don't know. I don't think people can afford it. I was like, no, I can barely afford my rent right now. And she was like, what am I going to do? It's like, lower the rent, maybe. It's not like you guys like base the rent price off what other people were paying. You guys just make shit up all the time. Snagway says many of them do fact learners. I'm serious. What do you say when someone says that shit to you? And it was like randomly. I think we were both waiting for the gas guy to come. When you need gas in your house, because we have gas appliances and stuff for your water heater and everything, you have to call a guy. And if you're a decent neighbor, you tell your neighbor if you see him, hey, I'm calling the gas guy. Do you need gas? And the gas guy generally doesn't speak any English. So I was being a good neighbor, waiting for and he starts going into this kind of racist rant. Tony says, he's just really that fucking dumb or fucking with you. He, a little bit of, I don't want to say both. I think he was that crazy. There was a woman I was dating at the time, and she would, like, I guess you guys call it sunbathing or whatever, tan. Because the place does get good sun outside. And so she had forgot something in my car. And so she went, and she's wearing just like a bikini, nothing crazy. And he had come out at the same time. And I think he I think he's like was listening for her to like walk out the door, like listen to the door to close, and he saw that she walked outside. So he walked outside, and he's like, hey, where are you going? She's like, I'm going to go see my boyfriend who lives there. His name is Jason. He's like, oh, you should come by more. Who says that? Like, seriously, who says that? That's not cool. DC show flexes. That's one of the good ones. Nah, dude, I think that dude really fucking sucked. He ended up getting in a fight with me and Ben. He tried to say some mean shit to Ben as well. Yeah. DC says he was trying to get down. He was. The woman, look, she's an attractive woman, but still, she didn't say, oh, I'm here randomly with she goes, my boyfriend lives in that unit there. His name is Jason. And he was like, oh, you should come by more. Dude sucks. The guy running the brothel was kind of weird too, but he ended up getting busted by the military. They came here with many machine guns. Oh no. Does Spanish have as many verb tenses as French? Maybe it's too complex for the average Anglophone pea brain. That mindset is surprisingly common in this area. Military or cartel militia. It was the literal military. That is, uh, there's levels of police forces, and then there's the military, and it was the military. It wasn't the National Guard. It was the official military, and they came and got the guy. It was crazy. Trey says, "Is it just my history of trauma, or does everyone totally want to see where Jason lives?" You can see pictures of the outside. When you move to a country to not speak their language because they move to your country and don't speak your language, but confine the revenge to dating. I'm with you, Kush. Look, is crazy. But the initial question, and I'll ask it again, was the rise of woke culture a moral corrective to the excesses of the late 90s and early 2000s pop culture? Or was it another version of the same spectacle, this time dressed in the language of morality and progress? I'll ask again. Was the rise of woke culture a moral corrective to the excesses of late 90s and early 2000s pop culture, or was it just another version of the same spectacle, this time dressed in the language of morality and progress? I think what I think of as woke culture, especially the way the Republicans are saying it, is kind of the rise of identity politics. And both parties do their share of identity politics, right? It's the white working class for the GOP, and it's race based, gender based agendas of the Democratic Party. The war on women, the war on women's reproductive health, the war on the white working class. These things to me become big parts of the conversation. Pan Africanism was monetized by hip hop in the late 80s and early 90s. I think it was a combination of middle class people feeling the financial squeeze in combination with people growing up in front of screens instead of socializing. Ooh, I like that. I like that. What's going on? Oh, you want more canned sound effects? Don't you ever? How dare you? Fuck right off. All the way off. I know. Tony says, don't you think woke culture was the logical conclusion to the cultural turn of the 70s and the new left? I mean, nationalism is the right wing godfather of identity politics. No? Ooh, that's a good one. I'll ask the question again for the new viewers that just popped in. Was the rise of woke culture a moral corrective to the excesses of the late 90s and early 2000s pop culture? Or was it just another version of the same spectacle, this time dressed in the language of morality and progress? Ken says both. There you go, Shamu. We love our canned sound effects, don't we? Oh, no, my brother.
No, my brother.
Ha ha! You know what I'm saying? Or is it, Tony says, or is it also just what gives rise to the new feudal fad for folks who don't know what money, wealth, and value are? God damn it, Tony. You did it again. You did it again. How dare you? How dare you? Drea says, in the 90s and 2000s, we saw that all groups of people were messed up. So groups turned to trauma competition and identity politics to justify why they are actually the worst off and most traumatized. I would ask, what do you get from that? There has to be something that you get from that. No one wants to be the most traumatized or most victimized unless there's something to get from that. You can get a certain cultural shield. One of the things that we have a visual understanding of is slavery, chattel slavery in the United States, Jim Crow during the civil rights movement, right? So black suffering becomes the suffering in which most ethnicities have to explain their suffering through that same lens. This is like Jim Crow. This is the same thing as what happened during Jim Crow. Does it feel like in the post George Floyd moment that all of that has backseat for two reasons? Number one, you get a kind of reparations payout in the $50 billion that goes to grants and foundation money for incubator projects, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a hand wiping of, you got all the stuff that you wanted. You said you needed representation via cultural reproduction. You got it in spades. You said you wanted more Negroes in the writing rooms after you got your representation with cultural representation. Gave you Ray, Sean Times. So you not only got black representation, but using the intersectional framework, you got black female representation. Nigga, what? Yes. What was the call after that? Defund the police? I don't know. You didn't really get anything. I haven't heard anybody say that or abolish the blah, blah, blah in forever. I'd love to know why. Is it because those things are extremely disconnected from any sort of working class concerned? People that live in impoverished areas that may deal with a certain amount of crime. We can talk about crime going down. Doesn't mean it went away, right? And depending on how you've interacted with crime, you may hate the police, but still not want them to leave. And I think for a certain kind of middle class person that live in an area, then you know you look at those people as voting for their worst interests. If you've never experienced being mugged, if you've never experienced being assaulted, It really changes you. Ever had a gun? If you never stared down a gun, that stuff really changes you. That's trauma inducing. You know what I mean? Without Remorse says the left became passive under 4 years of Biden. But why? Like, seriously, why would one become passive when the person in power was the architect of the things that you've been fighting for the last 30 years? If the 2020s is remembered as the George Floyd moment, and before that's remembered as the BLM moment, it's also the era that we start to realize that locking everybody up for low level crime probably isn't that smart. And there's these pushbacks against it. There's people that have been fighting for it for decades. And if the guy in office is the dude that was the architect of the bill that said, let's lock these people up for these long periods of time for low level offenses, let's get that are traded in the city as the big bad, i.e., crack, right? The crack to powder ratio, 9:1 ratio. Start giving it. Let's give more power to attorneys. So even if judges go, I don't think this kid needs to be in here for 25 years. He's 18 years old. Doesn't matter. You're going to be in there for 25 years. If Joe Biden is letting you off the hook, if it's a reprieve, then what were you fighting in the first place, would be my question. Were you fighting the idea of a return to the 90s? Were you fighting the idea of garish behaviors and a lowbrow culture in the White House? And you wanted it back to professionalism? Because if that's what you were fighting, then I would have to challenge your quote unquote leftist bona fides. But what if the 2010s has put us in such in a way where it's all just branding exercises? It's all about how we feel. Again, the guy that got hit by a car, Anton Yeager, has written extensively and quite well about this hyper political moment that really happens in the 2010s. Ryan Zagraf, I just talked to him recently. He had a pretty interesting article in Unheard where he interviewed the former journalist, I think she was the editor of Teen Vogue, who just changed that magazine. Teen Vogue was a way to market products to girls. That's the only reason why it existed. And she turned it into a hyper political rod. She had a book deal out of it. Now she quit being online. She joined a cult. Looks back at the past as kind of just youthful. If we're stuck in youthful, wow. Mathis says Teen Vogue had more useful leftist writing than Jacobin. Entertainment is probably one of the shrinking venues of class mobility. Entertainment is politics. Is it better than there's no bad press for that guy. The craziest, most neo-feudal. I'm going to build a bigger palace in my palace. All while the poor starve. Doesn't care. Does not care. It's all entertainment. It's going to be the centerpiece of every news program. And if your left is so disconnected from any sort of real, not just movement building, but like institution building, and it's just the revolution is going to be podcasters and people that listen to podcasts. Like, oh, Jesus Christ. The revolution ain't going to last too long. If Donald Trump says something crazy, I could do a show about it. And a million of the people are going to do a show about it. It's going to be horrible. And, I listened to the radio this morning. Was it day 39 of the government shutdown? Another court said you have to pay out all of people's SNAP benefits, not a portion of it. And I'm listening to people in the San Diego area talk about how they're struggling to eat. And I don't know if anyone listening right now, I feel confident. I feel like the people that watch the show, and I don't know why, have had moments where they didn't eat. I joke with my daughter, probably like my father jokes with me, about when she was little, there would be these days where her mother and I, it was like, well, who's going to eat today? The kids got to eat, unfortunately. But it was like that bad for us. It was a struggle. I feel confident that people understand that struggle. And it's a fear. Again, trauma inducing. I've had food insecurities, yes. Says I was on food stamps for 19 years. As an individual adult, I never received more than $100, $120 per month. There was a map that was going around social media in every country: Brazil, Venezuela, Argentina, Chile, Peru. All of them kids want to be streamers and YouTubers. Weird says ramen and Ritz. That's funny. After the Supreme Court said they couldn't make the administration fully fund SNAP until the appeal was paid. So that's good. That is good. But hearing food banks say we don't have enough food, what was it? Food bank goes, we can give one meal for every 9 that people got with SNAP. And now people are going to the food bank. It's like, you're the only one. Before this SNAP stuff happened, I looked at the warehouse. I remember there was a downtime between tours where me and my ex, it was bad. And there was a couple guys that lived there. I think they both passed away now, that worked at the food bank in Oakland, one of the food pantries. And they were like, well, just come by the food pantry. Like, just get there early. We'll give you a number and you can get some food. And we did. We did it a couple times. But it's a hell of a process. You got to get there super early. I think we got there like 5 to get a number. you stand in line to get a number, and then you stand in line and wait. It was like 4 or 5 hours for the whole process to get to get as much food as you possibly can get. Um, it's not a way people should live. And if we only understand this through the lens of the welfare queen, if we understand this through a Schadenfreude, oh, these are Trump supporters, they're getting what they deserved. It's like, Jesus, man, one America to miss the whole point because we're having these weird fights that aren't about the health and well-being of a nation or a people. The food pantry I was volunteering at my church gives a massive amount of food to mostly Haitian folks who show up and they get their food in less than an hour. I'm glad you got that shit moving. It seems that the perception is that the people on food stamps get a massive amount of money. Nothing could be further from the truth, says Sean. Yeah. Well, we've been talking for a couple hours now. I think we've asked enough questions. Let me get one more question. And then you guys can leave me, like I said, soliloquies in the comments. I'm looking forward to it. Does the shift from class-based to identity-based politics reflect genuine progress, or does it serve the same elite interests that fueled both eras of culture? Are the hoes loyal? And the biggest question of all, are the hoes loyal? Are they? I don't know. But the guest did get back to me. You want to hear something crazy? He did get back to me. I gave him the wrong date. Yep.
No, my brother.
I did. It was me. Wrong date. It's tomorrow. So I'll be back tomorrow. Never get to sleep in. Can we inhale woke politics from someone else's ball sack? Jesus Christ. If you are a fan of the show and listen to the Champagne Room, then you will understand what a ball sack vampire is. If you've never heard of a ball sack vampire, then become a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber, and then you will know exactly what a ball sack vampire is, how to avoid them at all costs, because they're daywalkers. They are daywalkers, and nothing is safe around a ball sack vampire. I'm not playing the clip. I'm not playing the clip. But someone says time to rewatch Candyman again. Yeah, go rewatch Candyman. I wanted to do a movie, but maybe not. Maybe we'll figure it out. Kushlik says, "Oh God, that scrotal man." Thank you guys for hanging out with me for the last hour and 52 minutes. And all the questions I asked, I don't necessarily have the answers for. You guys always have insightful things to say that influence the way I see the world. So please continue to write your comments. Again, this all comes from something I've been working on for the last few days. And there's a conclusion to it that I'm definitely not telling you. But thank you guys. And I'll see you mañana. And I am out.